Hey everybody, it's Dave Dugdale, learningDSLRvideo.com. So 7 years ago, I bought a Samsung for $700. And I've probably used it for every hour that it's been rated because I've used it a ton. So it was time to retire it and get a new one. So a while back, I asked on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, what you guys would like me to review, what you thought I should be looking at to replace my monitor. And 3 definitely rose to the top. So if I don't mention your Dell, your NEC, or your ISO, or any of the ones that didn't make it to the top 3, I apologize. But I wanted to limit it down to 3 because, you know, there's a lot of big boxes and thousands of dollars worth of equipment come from B&H, and I just wanted to bring it down to the top 3. So the top 3 that made it were the Asus PA279Q. It's a 27-inch monitor. HP 27-inch Z27X Dream Color, and the 34-inch LG 34UM95-P. All right, let's start off with what these 3 monitors have in common. They all have the same vertical native resolution of 1440. They are all 10-bit color, which I'm going to come back to later. They're all IPS. They all have a display port, HDMI port. They're all LED backlit. And they all have either 99 or 100% coverage on sRGB or Adobe RGB. You could probably use these 3 monitors for gaming. They're not super fast in terms of response time, but they are very accurate in terms of color, especially in this type of price range. You know, for Photoshop, speed grade, I think they do extremely well. However, I've talked to a couple different colorists, Juan Salvo and Jason Myers, and they've told me that, you know, if you're doing high-end professional color grading work, these are not the monitors that they use. They use like 10-bit SDI reference monitors from either like Sony or FSI, and that are very different price level than these. These are ranging from $700 to $1,400, where those are ranging from like $7,000 to like, I don't know, super high. I don't know much about those type of monitors. They're very different. They're video monitors, where these are computer monitors. 2 very different animals. So I wanted to make that clear. One of the things I did want to talk about, you know, I talked to both of these colorists, was the whole 10-bit issue, because these monitors, while they're all 10-bit, I think most of you, like myself, own GTX cards from NVIDIA, because the reason why is they have tons of CUDA cores, and tons of CUDA cores is great for rendering. They're great for real-time playback. Now, if you wanted to get 10-bit performance out of these monitors, I can't because I have NVIDIA cards, is you'd have to go to the Quadro cards, which have less CUDA cores and usually cost way more, but they have the drivers, from what I understand, to support the 10-bit. All right, so how do all 3 of these compare? Let me just start off by saying these are really, 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 really close. They're subtle difference, minute differences between these 3 monitors. Now, comparing my old Samsung monitor to this, there is noticeable differences. But comparing these 3 side by side, there's not. So anything I'm about to say, just take it with, there are so minor differences you might not be able to tell. I mean, it's really, really close. So I had my friend Andy C come over. I'm not using his last name because he doesn't use his last name in any of the social networks, but he came over and we stared at these monitors for hours and hours and hours. Actually, what's really interesting is that like the first hour, I didn't see much difference at all. They looked pretty much identical, but he started pointing things out to me that I didn't see because he's a professional retoucher and he knows a lot more about this stuff than I do. And he was surprised too that they were all very close. All 3 of these came individually calibrated from the factory with like a delta E of less than 2, which basically means, from what I understand, that they're really accurate in terms of color. We did calibrate them, but right off the bat, I want to say all I did was to match these 3 was to change the brightness level, so they all kind of matched. But I didn't change like any of the color settings or anything until we actually calibrated them. So anything I'm about to say, just take it that there's really not that much difference. All right, as you're watching some of this B-roll, just take into account that I almost thought of not putting it in because you might say, oh, that one looks more magenta, that more. That's not what it looked like to my eye or Andy's eye at all. They almost looked identical. What the camera sees is very different than how you see. So I just want to reiterate what you're seeing. I didn't custom white balance to the HP if the HP looks most accurate. So here goes. Here's the first thing that I noticed was the LG was the most contrasty and saturated, but again, ever so slightly. The next thing is the HP had, probably you could see into the shadows the best, but ever so slightly. The Asus had a little bit of green in the highlights than the other two, but ever so slightly. For black and white images, the HP was probably the most neutral, but again, ever so slightly. For high contrast and high saturated images, I gotta tell you, they pretty much looked all the same. You know, Andy could pick out a few minor differences, but when you get to really high contrast saturated images that we were looking at, it was really hard to tell. Probably the LG had the most similar look to the iPad in terms of contrast. The HP had a little bit more detail than the other two, but ever so slightly. And in the end, I asked Andy, I said, which one, if you had unlimited supply of money, because he was thinking about upgrading one of his monitors. He was thinking about the HP because it had, to him, the most neutral look to it. All right, so which one did I pick? I ended up picking the LG. Like I said, we were basically splitting hairs on this, really, really close. The reason I picked the LG is because of the real estate. It's really, really wide, which means that when I'm in speed grade, I can do a 2-up display. Like if I'm shot matching the previous shot to the next shot, it's so nice to have these big images side by side and I can see exactly what I'm doing. Like when I was writing the script for this whole thing, I write the script, but I basically don't read off a teleprompter. It's just, I look at my notes right here. But basically I have 3, if you can actually see it, if I tilt the monitor a little bit, you can see I've got 3 different things. I've got Chrome, I've got Firefox, and I've got IE, all 3 browsers, and it makes working faster, if you know what I mean, in terms of cutting, pasting, grabbing information from one browser to another. It works out really well. So for me, it's an issue of real estate because, like I said, we were splitting hairs on the color and contrast. If you don't have much money, I would say get the Asus because it's extremely accurate. It's only like $750. It's the cheapest of the 3. The HP is the most expensive, coming at about twice that amount, and the LG is about $1,000 at the filming of this review. So if you wanted to save money, I'd say, you know, get the Asus. It's probably the best for the price. And with the money you got left over, like say you saved $700 from not buying the HP, I would reinvest in better glass maybe, because you would notice that difference way more than you would notice anything that's going on here. So that's pretty much it. I've been meaning to do this for a very long time. I thought I would be using these for like a month or so. Each one a week here and a week there, but after like the first couple of days, it was like I was sold. You know, they were all so close, with at least my eye. Now again, like somebody like Andy, who's a professional retoucher, could see things, but he said the same thing too. He says, I'm really surprised they're so similar. So that's pretty much it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.